Stars were still in the sky.
Stars were out.
Dark.
Well, we had 2 cars for the 8 of us, and we had arrived a little bit early. So
45 minutes early.
45 minutes early. We didn't want to be late. So we were sitting in the Howard Johnson's parking lot, deep breathing like crazy, with our hearts beating, right?
I was perfectly calm at that point. I think I was the only one that wasn't nervous because I'd been so nervous all the way up until then. When I woke up that morning, I was just completely at ease. I didn't have any.
We had our hammers concealed in a pocketbooks, or mine was hanging underneath my arm, my t-shirt. We then approached the building in this way and came in through the parking lot.
Which was mostly empty at the time.
Mostly empty, you know. And of course we had rehearsed all of this and role-played it and knew exactly where each car was going to park and who would get out and go in what order.
Here we are at the Reentry Systems Division, Operational Manufacturing Center. Who would ever know it was a center for manufacture of nuclear warheads from that name? We felt it was very important to time it so that the more quickly things proceeded, the more likely it was we'd get in.
We came right around here and parked.
Okay, hold on. This door?
This door. This is where all the workers come in.
This is where we went in. There's 4 on either side up the steps. And through the door on the right-hand side, I believe it was. And inside is the security guard's desk. If anything, that was the thing that thrust me into this action, because I'm a housewife, I have 6 children. I don't think people could perceive me as some kind of a, heroine figure or something unreal. I think I'm the kind of person that, I think I could talk to groups of people and they could relate to and understand me for a person that cares about her kids. Father Carl Cabot and Ann Montgomery led the way. They went inside and introduced themselves to the security guard who was at a little desk. They shook his hand, they introduced themselves, said that they were there for nonviolent, peaceful purposes. Meanwhile, what we were doing was walking around right behind them and through the second door. The guard, I could see him looking at us with some question, but before he had time to react, I think we were all inside, the 6 of us. Carl was right with the guard, and Anne had her hand at the telephone. The guard immediately sensed that something was going on. It wasn't the normal opening of the regular day at that plant, and so he went to the telephone. And as he reached for the phone, he made it clear that he was going to, get hold of that phone. Anne, rather than resist him, left the phone alone and turned around and came and followed us inside. So at that point, there were 7 of us inside the building. Carl, meanwhile, stayed out and continued to engage conversation with the guard, who then put him in a bear hug.
Okay. Now, at that point, were they doing any singing?
Oh, at that point, they stopped and they all joined hands and they started to chant hymns, I guess. I don't know. I wasn't listening. I knew it was something. Anyway, at that time, I said, everybody out this way. They all filed out. We went down the passageway toward the rear lobby, and as we were going along the passageway, there were these white steel drums lined up along the right side of the passageway, and they each had white pamphlets on the steel drums. And that time I noted the third person in front of me lunged for a secret tag was on one of these pamphlets and started to rip it in 2. At that time I lunged forward to grab, take it out of his grasp, which I did.
Do you recall who that was?
Yes, it was Philip Berrigan. That time I said, that's private property. He said, that's people's property.
Okay. Now, when you observed that section of the building, in what state or condition was it?
There was blood all over the paved floors, paperwork, and there was one piece of hardware. It was aluminum, had holes punched in it.
Did you see any of the midsections, if you observed them?
One piece of...
Clarify, midsection is a euphemism for a Mark 12A nuclear warhead.
Your Honor, Mr. Suchard is interrupting me.
Well, describe what you mean by this aluminum piece with the holes in it, if you can.
Well, it's shaped like a funnel-shaped piece of aluminum.
What's it used for?
Objection, Your Honor.
I am security only. I have no idea what these products consist of or what they're used for. I am strictly security.
At any time, has anybody instructed you on what you were guarding?
We were supposed to guard General Electric property.
Property? What property? What is it?
I didn't ask what the property was. My job is security.
Has General Electric told people like Captain Moorbeck what they're guarding in Plan Number 9, what they're protecting? Have you been informed by General Electric concerning the so-called property there?
And these certainly are not questions of philosophy, they're questions of fact. He should know what he's guarding and be able to tell us.
That question was never asked.
It was asked.
No, it wasn't. You may call your next witness, Mr. Eckland.
Mr. Baumann, by whom are you employed?
General Electric.
And how long have you been
manager of shop operations?
And how long have you been employed by GE?
20 years.
Okay. I show you Commonwealth Exhibit 58, and I ask you, can you identify that?
Yes, I can.
And what is that?
That is what we call the mid-shield, or shell, rather. It's the aluminum structure.
Okay. And is that what you observed some of the 7 or some of the 8 striking?
Yes, I did.
Okay, now, if you look at this exhibit, it looks as though there are various indentations, marks, what have you.
Your Honor, we're willing to stipulate all this. I don't know what he's adding to what we've already admitted.
We admit that we banged it.
They're for the benefit of the jury.
Was there any way you can swivel it so the audience could know?
But the audience, it's not relevant for the audience, it's only relevant for the jury. We're not playing first-run theater here.
It is a public trial, isn't it?
Okay, when you went in there and observed them, exactly what did you observe them doing? And would you describe it for the members of the jury?
Well, as I say, there was this woman beating on the hardware, blood on the floor, at least what I thought was blood. And these people were having a lusty old time smashing the hardware. Beating on it with both hands. Some with both hands. Some with the right hand, some with one hand. I'm not certain that they used their left hands or not.
Okay, and how long was it after that that everything stopped?
Oh, I would say after about 5 seconds, everything was over.
And what items were damaged?
2 structures we call midsections.
Directing your attention to C6. Do you recognize these midsections as being thermonuclear warheads?
I can't answer that.
You are not aware that they contain 335 kilotons
I do not recognize that.
of thermonuclear device?
No, I do not.
And you've worked for General Electric for how long?
Over 20 years.
20 years.
That's right.
And how long have you worked at plant number 9?
About 13 years.
13 years.
That's right.
And how long has plant number 9 been in production of Mark 12, Mark 12A, or the Mark 500?
10 years.
10 years. And throughout that time, you were not aware that these are thermonuclear...
Would you ask me that question again?
Which question? Can you restate it and answer it yourself?
You asked me to identify that as a nuclear warhead.
Yes.
I can't do that.
You think it's being used for kitchenware?
That retortive question will be stricken from the record. It is not responsive, not questioning, and irrelevant.
You must think it's being used for something.
We are not going to have any speeches here, Reverend. I'm telling you that right now. I'm not going to have this sort of disruption.
Mr. Bowman, from your work at GE or from what you've been told by the company, are you familiar with what is being manufactured at plant number 9?
I can't answer that.
Well, what's your capacity vis-a-vis this non-destructible testing area?
Well, my responsibility is to manufacture the hardware. Okay? We are not a nuclear facility. It is not a nuclear facility.
Are you familiar with some of the characteristics of the Mark 12A?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Characteristics of the Mark 12A.
Yes, I said the Mark 12A.
I don't know what you mean by that. There are a lot of different characteristics. As far as the flight characteristics, I have no idea.
I mean the main characteristics. It's a first strike weapon, isn't it?
Objection, Your Honor.
Objection sustained.
I don't know anything about the first strike capability of this.
And yet you've been working for GE for 20 years.
That's right.
And I suspect you've been working on a whole range of thermonuclear weaponry.
Objection, Your Honor.
I know nothing about thermonuclear warheads. I've never seen a nuclear warhead.
Do you have any familiarity with the payload or the explosive yield of the Mark 12A, this weapon?
I know nothing about the specific uses of the Mark 12A. All I do is manufacture hardware, okay? We are not a nuclear facility.
And General Electric has never informed you about the intent or the purpose of that weapon?
No.